think it's lust, but it's not. It's something deeper, darker, older. You feel it late at night when the lights are out and the room is quiet, but something inside of you won't shut up. You're not thinking, you're craving. Your phone is in your hand, your chest is tight, your thoughts are loud but disconnected. And before you even realize what you're doing, you're scrolling, clicking, escaping. You tell yourself it's just stress, just hormones, just biology. But if that were true, why does it leave you feeling emptier every time? Why does pleasure feel like a lie the second it's over? Why does the climax feel more like a collapse? Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." What if lust isn't desire at all? What if it's just disconnection dressed up as hunger? A soul screaming, "I miss you," in the only language you still know how to hear. And what if the craving was never about her, but about you? The nightly it always starts the same. Late at night, when the world slows down and the noise fades away, you're finally alone, but it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like pressure. Like something inside of you starts to stir the moment everything else goes still. You're tired, but you're not going to sleep. Not yet. Instead, your hand reaches for your phone, almost on its own. And just like that, you're scrolling, swiping, clicking. You're not even really aware of what you're looking for, just that you need something. A surge, a spark, a distraction. Not because you're lustful, not because you're weak, but because you're starving. Not in your stomach, in your soul. There's a hollow ache behind your chest, a tightness in your throat. And in that moment, fantasy feels like medicine. But it's not healing you, it's numbing you. Your body moves, but your soul does not. It just watches, like a ghost behind your eyes, silently aching for something real. And afterward, when it's over, that crushing silence comes back. That strange, heavy emptiness. You think you're feeling guilt, but it's not guilt from some moral failure. It's not about right or wrong. It's about meaninglessness. You feel hollow not because you sinned, but because you settled. You chased stimulation instead of connection, and you knew it even while it was happening. But you didn't stop because stopping would mean sitting with the ache, and the ache is terrifying. Pleasure as performance. You tell yourself it's about pleasure, that it's natural, instinctive, normal. But deep down, you've noticed something strange. Even at its peak, even when it's wild, intense, everything you thought you wanted, you're not really there. Your body's reacting, sure, your heart's pounding, but there's a part of you that feels like it's watching from the outside, disengaged, numb, detached. Because what you're doing isn't intimacy, it's a performance. You follow the script, arousal, fantasy, stimulation, climax, but it's mechanical. You already know every move, every outcome, every drop of dopamine. It's rehearsed pleasure, not real connection, not aliveness, not love. And the worst part? You're not chasing pleasure for pleasure's sake. You're chasing it because without it you feel nothing. You're not chasing her. You're chasing the distraction she represents. You're using her body like a stage where you can perform the illusion of being whole, just long enough to forget that you're not. But afterward, when the curtain drops and the performance ends, you're left alone again. Not just in the room, but in your soul. Because this isn't desire. It's a ritual, a way to avoid facing what's actually inside you. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And what could be more absurd than pretending you're alive while feeling completely disconnected? You're not hungry for pleasure. You're hungry for presence. You just forgot the difference. The wound with no blood, there's a wound inside you. Not the kind anyone can see. Not the kind that bleeds or bruises or screams for help. This one's quieter, older, more patient. It doesn't show up on x-rays, it won't get you sympathy. But you feel it. You felt it for years. In the silence between texts. In the ache behind your scrolling. in the moments when you're surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. It's the kind of wound that doesn't scream. It hollows. It empties you in slow, silent waves until you're just performing, smiling, working, flirting, surviving, but never actually arriving anywhere real. And so, you reach for what's easy. You reach for what looks like closeness but costs you nothing. You chase stimulation instead of healing. Not because you're a bad person, not even because you're desperate, but because no one ever taught you how to sit with that wound, how to name it, how to say, I'm not okay and I don't even know why. So you suppress it. You push it down. You call it stress, just how life is. I'm just tired. But late at night, when everything goes quiet, the wound starts to whisper. And the only thing louder than that whisper is lust. Not because lust is your truth, but because it's the only language your wound knows how to speak. You think you're craving her body, but really, you're craving relief. Relief from the ache, relief from the hollowness, relief from the burden of pretending you're fine. But here's the truth. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. And this wound, it's not trying to destroy you. It's trying to wake you up. The man who felt nothing. There was a man. By all appearances, he had it together. Confident, charismatic, driven. The kind of man people admired. The kind women were drawn to. He always had someone new on his arm, someone beautiful, intriguing, someone who made his friends jealous. He called it freedom, said he didn't need anything serious, said he was just having fun. But late at night, when the lights were off and the room was still, something would creep in. Not fear, not sadness, something worse. Emptiness. He would lie there, next to someone he once fantasized about, and feel nothing. No warmth, no connection. Just that same dull ache in his chest. Like the pleasure happened to him, not with him. Like he had been acting the whole time. And now the scene was over. He thought maybe he was broken, that maybe something was wrong with his brain, his heart, his wiring. But eventually a question came to him, soft and terrifying. What if I never really wanted her? What if I just didn't want to feel alone? And that's when it all unraveled. He realized that what he'd been chasing wasn't intimacy, it was distraction. He didn't want love. He wanted escape. He wanted something to cover up the silence he was too afraid to face. She wasn't his desire. She was his disguise. And this is what most people miss. Lust isn't always about wanting more. It's often about wanting out. Out of yourself, out of the pain, out of the emptiness. But no matter how many bodies you chase, you'll always end up back where you started. Alone with your wound, because it was never about her. It was about the version of yourself you were trying to forget. Addiction to escape it. Some point it stops feeling like a choice. You don't even decide to do it anymore. You just do. Open the app. Type the name. Click the link. Trigger. Fantasy. Release. Then comes the guilt. Then the silence. Then the scroll. And the cycle starts again. It feels like hunger, but it's not. It's addiction. Not to sex. Not even to pleasure. But to escape. Because the moment you slow down, the moment you sit still and breathe, the ache comes back. The ache of being disconnected from yourself. Not from others, from you. Your own thoughts. Your own feelings. Your own truth. Carl Jung didn't say lust was evil. He said it was a signal. A flare in the dark from the parts of you you've left behind. The parts that still want to be held, to be seen, to be met without having to perform. But instead of facing that, you run. Because the shadow doesn't whisper in gentle tones. It haunts. And when you've spent years numbing, distracting, clicking, chasing, stillness feels like drowning. So you scroll. Not because you're a deviant, but because you've trained your nervous system to fear your own silence. You think the fantasy is about stimulation, But it's actually about proof. Proof that you're still wanted, still powerful, still able to feel something. But here's the trap. Every time you feed the cycle, it gets stronger. And every time the crash comes, it gets quieter. Numbness grows. And what once thrilled you, now barely moves the needle. This is the cost of using lust to escape pain. You lose access to real pleasure, real connection, and worst of all, yourself, the real hunger. What if this thing you keep calling lust isn't lust at all? What if it's something more ancient, more primal, and far more sacred? Because if you look closely, lust doesn't feel like desire. It feels like aching, like a craving that goes deeper than the skin. It doesn't just live in your body, it haunts your soul. You don't just want touch. You want to be seen, to be held without performing, to be known without pretending. You want someone to look at you, not the mask, not the version you crafted to survive, but you, the soft, raw, complicated you. But instead you settle for pixels, moments, rushes, hits of stimulation that feel like fire for 1 second, then leave ashes in your mouth the next. You scroll to feel something. But you're not reaching for pleasure, you're reaching for proof. Proof that you're alive, that someone still wants you, that there's something inside you still capable of being wanted. But here's the truth no one tells you. Lust isn't about wanting her. It's about wanting to feel whole again. It's not about bodies. It's about loss. The loss of connection to yourself, to your emotions, to your purpose. You're not craving sex. You're craving truth. You're craving something real enough to hold the weight of your soul. And deep down you know this. You know the climax isn't what you're after, because the moment it's over, you feel the same ache return, like a wave crashing into an empty shore. Carl Jung understood this. He believed our compulsions weren't sins. They were messages. Lust is not the enemy. It's the symptom. It's your soul's way of saying, I'm still here, and I'm still hungry, not for sex, but for something that doesn't disappear when it's over. The inner feminine, Jung's anima. Carl Jung believed that every man carries within him an image, a hidden buried essence, called the anima. It's not about gender. It's about energy, emotion, intuition, tenderness, the ability to feel deeply, to surrender without shame, to connect without fear. This is the inner feminine. But in a world that rewards stoicism and punishes softness, most men are taught early on to suppress that part of themselves. Be strong. Don't cry. Man up. So they bury it. Not because they want to, but because they're told that's what survival requires. And that anima, it doesn't die. It doesn't vanish. It simply goes unconscious. It becomes part of the shadow. And from that shadowed place, it begins to project. So one day, a man meets her. She's soft, warm. She speaks with emotion, moves like music, feels everything he's forgotten how to feel. And something inside him stirs. Not just attraction, but a kind of soul recognition. Not, I want her, but I need her to feel alive again. But here's the danger. He thinks he's falling in love with her, but he's not. He's falling in love with the part of himself she mirrors, the lost self, the forgotten softness, the buried beauty, and instead of turning inward to reconnect with that anima, he chases her, obsesses over her, clings to her, because unconsciously he believes she holds the key to his wholeness. But no woman, no matter how radiant, can complete what a man has exiled in himself. She might awaken it. She might reflect it, but if he hasn't reclaimed it, he'll turn her into a fantasy. And fantasies always collapse, because the more disconnected he is from his soul, the more pressure he puts on hers. He wants her to carry his unmet needs, but she was never meant to. That's the trap. He doesn't see her. He sees his own lost self wrapped in someone else's skin. The shift, from performance to presence, something changes the moment you stop running. When instead of chasing her, you turn around and face yourself. The ache, the hunger, the heat that rises like a wave and crashes into shame. You stop asking, how do I get rid of this? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That's the shift, from performance to presence, from addiction to awareness. Because when you stop trying to outrun your craving and start listening to it, you realize something wild. It was never about sex. It was about remembrance. Your body was never the problem. Your soul was just trying to be heard. Lust becomes sacred the moment you stop reacting and start receiving. You feel the fire, but you don't feed it. You stay with it, you breathe through it, you ask it gently, what are you really trying to show me? And the answer isn't vulgar. It's vulnerable. I miss you. I need you. I'm tired of being ignored. That's your inner self speaking. The one you buried beneath success and strength and survival. The one who doesn't want to perform anymore. He wants to exist. He wants to feel, without having to earn it. Carl Jung didn't believe we become whole by cutting out our cravings. He believed we become whole by integrating them, by folding them back into the light, not killing the shadow but embracing it. And that's when the need to chase disappears. You don't need her to make you feel alive, because you are no longer numb to yourself. You stop projecting, you stop performing, and for the first time you're present, not craving love, radiating it, not trying to be wanted, simply being enough. And when you live from that place, the hunger doesn't control you anymore, because the part of you that was starving has finally been fed. Coming home to yourself, so now you see it. It was never about her. Not really. She was the spark, the mirror, the myth your soul used to get your attention. But what you were chasing through her was always you. The lost you, the tender you, the boy who wasn't allowed to cry, the man who was taught to earn love by performing, the part of you that didn't disappear, just went quiet. And lust? Lust was the flare in the night sky. It was never your flaw. It was your flashlight, your soul's emergency signal trying to guide you home. You thought you were addicted to pleasure, but you were starving for presence. You thought you needed her body, but what you needed was your own truth. And now you have a choice. You can keep reaching outward, chasing women, dopamine, distractions, praying something outside of you will finally quiet the ache, or you can stop, get still, turn inward. You can meet the part of you that's been waiting by the window all these years, silently hoping you'd come back. Not to punish you, not to shame you, but to finally say, I see you. I missed you. I'm here now. That's what healing is. Not becoming someone else, not deleting desire, but remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. But now you see it. You've named it. You felt it. And that means you are no longer a prisoner to the craving. You are its interpreter. So the next time it rises, don't run. Don't scroll. Don't shame it. Just ask, what part of me is trying to return? Because that question, that presence, that's where the real power lives, not in lust, but in coming home to yourself.